So there's this little book. It's called Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Denneman. It's insanely popular, and for good reason. I devoured this series. And I'll tell any poor soul that's misfortunate enough to cross my path to read this. And if they're not into reading, I'm like, the audiobook is also a great option because the voice acting. Unfortunately, there's a bit of a problem when you go to tell people what this book is about. You sound as if you have ingested a substance. It's pure chaos in the best way. Basically, what had happened was the Earth is being harvested for valuable minerals by an alien race. And on the day of this harvest, all of the buildings in the entire world collapse, unaliving everybody that's inside. Our protagonist Carl, however, is outside because he's chasing his ex-girlfriend's award-winning show cat, Princess Donut the Queen Anne Chonk. And while trying to figure out what the heck is going on, these mysterious dungeon doors open, ushering inside willing survivors to become participants in a brutal fight-to-the-death style intergalactic game show, which has multiple levels for the now called dungeon crawlers to overcome. The world and character building in this book is fantastic. It's deeply dystopian, but with the necessary humor and emotional depth, and it's addictive. And I thought in honor, or maybe in like unhinged anticipation of the 8th book in the series coming out, A Parade of Horribles, that I would make a life-size version of one of the characters to just have. And that character is none other than Princess Donut's lovable pet and noble steed, Mongo, who's basically a velociraptor that has dog-like qualities that Donut projects her feelings onto. Speaking of dogs, let's take a quick moment to thank the sponsor of today's video, Spot and Tango, who makes a fantastic fresh-dry dog food called Unkibble that Mavis and Doug have been loving. Unkibble is vet-developed and tailored to age, breed, and activity level of your dog, and is made with 100% whole, fresh, human-grade ingredients, which are written right on the front of the bag, and contains nothing artificial. Not only that, but it's cooked or fresh dried in small batches to preserve nearly 99% of the flavor, aroma, and nutrients. Plus, Unkibble provides the benefits of fresh food along with the convenience of dry because it's shelf stable, meaning no refrigeration, fridge, or freezer space is needed. And it's around 40% less expensive than other fresh pet food brands. And I personally love that the food is customizable based on your dog's specific needs, because Mavis has allergies that the cod and salmon recipe is perfect for, and Doug's vet used the phrase, "still a bit rotund," at his last appointment, so he's watching his weight. Which Spot and Tango make easy by providing a custom scoop for each dog for ideal calorie intake. So if you'd like to try Spot and Tango's Unkibble for your pup, head to that link in my description, enter code Beatrice60 at checkout for 60% off. And there's no risk because if your dog doesn't like it, you get your money back. First order of business, let's sketch. This will help me throughout the build to keep some semblance of an end goal in sight because I do tend to lose the plot otherwise. Mongo is a species called a Velociraptor mongoliensis, which we did have in real life, but unlike the small turkey-sized dinosaur that it actually was, Mongo is described in the book as more of the pop culture version, you know, like the Jurassic Park style Velociraptor, with a length of 13 feet from the tip of the nose to the end of the tail. But unlike the movie version, Mongo does have feathers, and maybe a beak. I'm not actually sure if he kept the beak during adulthood, but he definitely had a beak-like thing while he was a baby. And speaking of not having an exact description on every single feature that he has, I had a lot of fun filling in the gaps and planning out his appearance based on what I know of birds, and I looked at pictures of baby blue herons for inspo because there is no way that that thing isn't a living dinosaur. And if you're curious when I started this project, it was on April 10th, 2026, 8:07 p.m. EDT, which I know because I paused filming this in order to film the splashdown of the Artemis 2 moon mission.
Integrity splashdown, sending post-landing command now.
Splashdown confirmed.
Copy splashdown, waiting on VLDR.
Splashdown confirmed at 7:07 p.m. Central Time, 5:07 p.m. Pacific Time. From the pages of Jules Verne to a modern-day mission to the moon, a new chapter of the exploration of our celestial neighbor is complete. Integrity's astronauts, back on Earth.
And yes, I did tear up when they landed safely. We were following that mission very closely, reading articles, watching every live stream that NASA put out, and trust that it was not lost on me that some people in this world were coming back from space after orbiting the dark side of the moon while others were planning elaborate dinosaur builds. I do believe that the next logical step in this process is probably to like start making the thing. But admittedly, that's the hardest part for me. I don't know if you get this with starting big projects, but I feel some anxiety with it. Like there's some uncertainty kicking around. It's like, how is this gonna go? What is this gonna look like when it's done? Well, bitch, there's only one way to find out. This has been a motivational talk from me to me. So let's get cracking. I did get a little overzealous with the highlighters on my Mongo sketch, but I was looking at this and I was thinking, if I want to make this as life size as possible, this is going to take up a lot of room. So I'm going to probably need to switch up the position that I have him in order to kind of reel it in. How I'm going to do that is a problem for another day. Right now we need to make a skeleton out of cardboard. Charles. My strategy for the major structural part is basically to envision what splices of the 3D object look like as a 2D plane moves through the body, kind of like how MRI images look. I'm starting in the middle of the head, and then I can make 2 of each added piece to mirror, to not only make it easier on me, but also symmetrical. Then I just glue in little filler rectangle pieces to bridge the gaps so it's not a solid hunk of cardboard. And I did decide to give my Mongo a suggestion of a beak by adding a point at the end of his snoot. Next, mapping out where the eyes will go, which I'll be making out of this clear plastic Christmas ornament that I've been harboring for years now to make eyes with. And oh yeah, I am cringing too watching me try to cut this in half. Believe me though when I tell you that it didn't feel nearly as sketchy in the moment as it looks, and if it makes you feel better, no blood was shed. But once I did finally saw this thing in half with my good kitchen knife, we can make eyeballs. Just kidding, I guess more skull first. Okay, now it's the eyes. I'm using India ink that's probably a decade old, but trust that these colors will still be super vibrant. I'm tracing the eye shape multiple times because I'm going to paint a lot of different irises and choose the best ones. I want Mongo to have these crazy cool large yellow amber eyes. And I tried to make these look semi-realistic, so I cut a hole in the iris to allow you to see through to another layer, which I painted solid black that will act as the pupil. I made sure to paint any exposed edges of the paper and then gently bent and pressed each layer into the ornament that's acting as our cornea. Cool, 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 cool. Now we're ready to hot glue them directly to the skull. Good morning and welcome to day 2 of the Mongo build. This is what we have to show for day 1. Just the top part of his nog. This is admittedly looking a little bit like a Jim Henson puppet, one of those fireys from, shoot, what are those from? Dark Crystal? Labyrinth? I don't know, something Jim Henson did. Anyways, Chetty has affectionately decided to leave me a gift this morning on my workstation in the form of his vom. Probably payback because I wouldn't let him crawl all over my work table while I had the hot glue gun out. And as a little side quest, how do you get a cat to chew their food better? Because I don't think Chetty's doing it that well. I'm not using the MRI method for these next few bits because they're way too delicate and awkward. Instead, I made a template on Bristol paper of one side of the jaw. It's just way easier for me to trim paper than cardboard to get the right shape. I just kept holding it up to the skull piece I made yesterday until it looked right, and then I could trace that paper template onto cardboard, flipping it over on the long side to trace again to get the other side of the jaw, making this one continuous piece. And then I did the same thing with both sets of teeth for the top and bottom. I'm just going to leave these needle teeth two-dimensional and rely on papier-mâché to pad them out later. And on this day, like most, Chetty needed to be the main guy. Chetty. Come on, buddy. Come over here. Come over here. So I didn't make a ton of leeway, but I did manage to get the tongue knocked out and a couple of planes of the neck. It was important to me that Mongo have a sort of like chicken goozle thing. I'm not really sure what it's called. Maybe like a swaddle. But I wanted to incorporate those bird elements in there where they made sense. I'm feeling oddly nostalgic right now for a time that I never lived in. I think that's called like anachronism or something. Not sure. But not really in like any other sense. Like if we could just keep everything of my present moment, but turn back time on how movies are made to make it so practical effects and sets are just much more prevalent. Because I think making stuff for movies would probably be my dream job. And I'm not saying do away with CGI. I'm just saying I wish the practical stuff was more prevalent again and blend them more. Which I think they did in Project Hail Mary. The set was all practical, but it's definitely not the norm and they use the void like way too much. But the future for that hope is not looking too good. And this is the part where I bring up AI. Just kidding, I don't really feel like getting into that. I just like making shit and solving problems. And it's really fun to me to give little backstories to why something looks a certain way during decision making, and I just feel like I would love to do more of that. Then on the next day I finished out the bottom of the jaw and the neck, and then made a singular plane of the body and tail just to try to get some semi-decent proportions. And with the structure of the head and neck done, it was time for good old duct tape to give Mongo a layer of skin on his face. This also makes everything more secure and covers the giant gaps. And with that covered, I just started working my way down to the main body. Peanut body. Peanut body. Peanut body. Peanut body. You know about this peanut body?
You go get that on her before it dries. Just showing that, flashing it at me.
Flashing this peanut butter at you? Peanut butter. Peanut butter jelly time. Peanut butter. This is where we currently are in the Mongo builds. The head is the most actualized. Then we got this peanut butter going on and a singular plane of the tail crafted at this point. I've been using duct tape as a sort of skin to bridge the gaps between the cardboard planes. And I know there is still a lot of cardboarding left on the docket. However, I think what I'm gonna do today is start on paper macheing the head, because this thing is getting more and more unmanageable. Like, it's just harder and harder to maneuver around, and all of the teeth, the tongue, inside the mouth, that's gonna be really hard to get to once this thing is like fully a dinosaur. So today we paper mache the head. And welcome to the paper macheing station. I went ahead and bought this bucket solely for macheing purposes. So I'm not using my kitchen bowls like the last time I paper macheed something, which was a giant cockroach shell. And it is filled to water to like this point right here. Now, if you're looking at this as a tutorial, apologies, because I go solely off vibes. And basically what you do is you just soak toilet paper in the water until it loses its paper-like quality and becomes just like this pulp. Yeah, typically the more you tear this up, the easier it will make your life. You just let the paper soak for a bit, and so much for not using my kitchen supplies for this, because I hit this with my immersion blender hard and threw all the mixture in a colander and squeezed out as much water as possible before returning to my dedicated paper mache bucket, where I added a lot of Elmer's glue and mixed until I had this clay-like consistency. Next, I set to the task of meticulously covering all these little baby needle teeth in the paper mache. A wet paintbrush really helped maneuver things, and eventually I got one side of the head done. But I had to wait for that to dry before doing the other side the next day. And spoiler alert, the waiting for stuff to dry bit is the worst part. Patience is hard. Welcome to the hellscape that is my garage. I was thinking to myself, Silphi says, it would be really nice if Mongo could stand on his own and not have to be propped up. However, there is a problem with his bones being made of cardboard and a small surface area that he's gonna have to stand on. And then there's like also the problem of him being like front loaded. So I was thinking if I could build some kind of internal structure out of something a little bit more sturdy, like wood or like some kind of rod situation, that might be the way to go. So we're in this garage of curiosities of all of the trash that I've saved for projects just like this, even though I don't do many of them. I'm thinking wood. And unfortunately, that's all in this spider nest area, so. Next step is figuring out how far apart I want the legs to go, and I'm going to connect them like a goal post in the middle, and I might have an additional piece of wood running through the tail because that might counterbalance the weight of the top half with the bottom. So I don't know, it's a delicate thing figuring out how to get something to stand up straight. Like, there's no math involved in this. I'm just guessing at proportions. Worst case scenario, I have to prop it up with something, but that's not going to be the end of the world, so. Oh my goodness, this is so rigged right now. It's literally being held up by water and a roll of toilet paper. Now, the issue of trying to get to that other side to figure out the other leg. I continued making the leg using the MRI approach, duct taping as I went, and I did make sure to give him those prominent big clicky talon things on each foot. You know what I'm talking about, like that one scene in Jurassic Park? After much deliberation on how to properly make these legs so that they're stable and sturdy and will support the weight of a dinosaur, I completely threw all of that out of the window and just did whatever I wanted, which was make everything out of cardboard. And then my solution for stability was just literally shove a dowel as far down into the leg as I possibly could. And as you can see, by the protruding dowel, it didn't go all the way down. So we have to cut some off, which means we've got a handheld chainsaw. I always feel when I handle power tools that I should have an adult present. But then I remember I am an adult, and that's scary. Jenny! Come on, spaghetti! Let's go somewhere else. The feet and the hands were a challenge because there were just a lot of these weird organic small shapes that ended up looking kind of phallic that had to be stacked tightly together. But once the duct tape got on there, it looked pretty good. And that's one side down, and now I can flip it over and do the other arm and leg. So I've been hoarding this piece of cardboard the entire project because I don't know if you can tell, but this is quality trash.
I'm the trash man.
This is not a normal piece of cardboard. This is beefy cardboard. And I think I'm finally gonna use it. Otherwise, I'll just be hoarding it for an eternity. Probably the best place would be the feet, because they're gonna have to take a brunt of the weight. And because I had to work on this while it was laying on its side, I didn't account for the downward pressure of gravity, and Mongo's legs ended up way too close together. And if there ever was a part in this process that Mongo would be appalled by, it is definitely how I had to rectify this situation.
You want to switch? What are you trying to do? Just push it deeper?
Just trying to push it so it's horizontal.
Yeah, grab it.
Okay, keep spreading it like that. Ooh, did I get you?
Yeah, a little bit. It's fine.
Are you okay? Okay, now let it go. Perfect.
Am I flipping it back over?
Yeah.
Should you secure that first?
It'll be, I can secure it from a different position. Yeah. Perfect. And finally we made it to the last bit in the actual structure, the tail. And I know I didn't proportionally make it long enough to make him 13 feet long, but remember that this has to fit somewhere in my house. So I had to make a bit of a compromise. And then just a ton more paper mache. I definitely have developed carpal tunnel. Just so much squeezing of the soggy paper. It is currently May 6th. That means Parade of Horribles comes out in 6 days. And the current state of Mongo is slightly moist paper mache. And he has been sitting here like this for 2 days now, and I am getting extremely impatient about it. Because I would like to get this video out before the book comes out, and we still have to cover his entire body with feathers, coat the whole thing in a layer of Plasti Dip, let that dry, and then paint the entire thing, which is a lot. So we're gonna have to defy the laws of gravity, physics, thermodynamics, the universe in general, and get this curing time to speed up via the only way that I really know how, which is hairdryer. And I know that there's a little bit of risk involved with that, as far as it drying too fast, drying unevenly, and then cracking, but it's a risk we're gonna have to take. by itself. You have no idea how happy I am. Girl, I thought I was gonna have to stick a dowel under him to keep him upright. Because I had to build the entire thing on its side, I was not knowing how, like, the weight was being distributed and whatnot. So this is a miracle. For the feathers, I used EVA foam, which I've never used before. But when I looked up how to feather, the cosplay community came through and recommended this stuff, so we will see. I got a couple of different thicknesses to try out, 1mm and 2, and I started with the places where Mongo has larger feathers, like for his tiny useless wings, the tip of his tail, and I wanted to give him the appearance of raised hackles, so he's getting like this mohawk of feathers down the center of his head, neck, and spine. Here I am just mapping out his hairline. And quick side note, is anyone else mesmerized by those videos of this lady who installs toupees on men? Like, I don't know what algorithm I'm being on, but that is what is currently being served, and it is just so fascinating to watch. But I need to know, is that just me, or is anyone else getting those? But I digress, this was multiple days of cutting out foam feathers and gluing. Feathering the entire body, and no, I do not want to talk about it. But as you can tell by the echoing, we have changed location, because the next step involves some pretty heavy-duty toxic aerosols that I do not want to spray in my house for obvious reasons. So here we are in the garage gym. The idea, because I still need some sort of protection from the elements, is to build inside the garage gym a Dexter-style kill room. And if you aren't familiar with the early 2000s TV show Dexter, it's basically we're just gonna put plastic over everything. So yeah, let's do it. Plasti-Dip is another staple of the cosplay community, so I sprayed this over the entire thing. And from what I understand, it's just like this aerosol plastic coating that makes stuff tougher, but also flexible, and allows paint to adhere. And believe me, you do not want to breathe this stuff in. It will absolutely wreck your lungs. So a respirator is of the utmost importance, really as with any aerosol. But now that everything is white, you can really see the detail and texture of the feathers, and that made all of that gluing and cutting worth it. And it looked pretty awesome. But you know what would make it look even more awesome? Getting some color on him. And just by accident, I came across these acrylic spray paints in the craft store, and these were a lifesaver. They just saved so much time by allowing me to do a base layer and really get into all those nooks and crannies of the feathers without having to use a brush. And mild spoiler alert, in the third book, the characters acquire a saddle for Mongo, which is described as blue and red tassel covered, obscenely garish, like something you'd see a horse ride during a 4th of July parade in the Deep South. And then Princess Donut remarks, Mongo, it matches your feathers. And I'm not gonna lie, I was really not wanting to make Mongo 4th of July blue and red. Because I must have missed this when I read through the series, because I was thinking his ass was pink this entire time. Like when he was a baby. But anyways, I thought that if I could kind of do an ombre effect and add a bunch more colors in there, it wouldn't look so horrible. So I added this lilac color where the blue was to meet the red, and then a magenta and a hot pink, and finally mixing together an orangish red to dry brush onto the mohawk wings and tip of the tail. And I even put like a little bit of yellow on the tips of those feathers as well. And I also wanted to give the feathers an iridescent quality, so I started slapping on metallic blues on the body and golds to the red bits. Because Mongo is male, I wanted to make him a bit flashy to replicate what we see in the bird world. I chose to make his skin this olive green gray color, but it kinda just looks gray on camera. But I got a good base of that down before stopping for the night. In all honesty, he's a little bit unnerving to walk up on, but last day of painting, let's go. Now it's all in the small details. The inside of the mouth, which was really hard to get to because the teeth ended up being pretty sharp. And then trying to make the beak look beak-like, I did this by making it black and kind of fading out to the gray color of the skin, trying to make it appear hardened, like a parrot beak or something. I don't know. And then I added texture to the skin, which was easily achieved by doing a wash of watered down black paint over the entire thing because the natural texture of the papier-mâché gets highlighted when you do that. And I did make his teeth a little bit too clean. Mongo eats an exorbitant amount of gross shit in the dungeon, so yeah, they're a little bit too clean. But yeah, that's pretty much it as far as the making it goes. I just want to apologize if you can hear buzzing in the background. There are 5 of the juiciest, fattest flies zipping around, and there's nothing I can do about it. But after a month of my life, I have finally finished Mongo. And now there's only one thing left to do. Glamour shots, baby. But I guess that's it. So I just want to thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having an amazing day, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!